Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into Madam How and Lady Why.
By Charles Kingsley.
Yeah, by Charles Kingsley. It seems like a really fun way to learn about science. Kind of like
Almost like a Victorian podcast for kids.
the Victorian podcast, yeah,
Yeah.
for kids. It uses these two characters, Madam How and
Yeah.
Lady Why, to kind of explain the natural world. So
Yeah.
are you ready to explore this book and see what we can find?
Absolutely. I think it's actually surprisingly insightful, even though it's written for children.
Mm-hmm.
Kingsley's approach is really interesting, and I think you'll be amazed at how he uses storytelling
Yeah.
and vivid examples to make these concepts come alive.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Who are Madam How and Lady Why, and why these characters?
Well, Madam How represents the how of things,
Okay.
the processes and mechanisms of nature. She's all about the facts,
Mhm.
the observable phenomena,
Yeah.
the nuts and bolts of how things work.
Mm.
Lady Y, on the other hand, embodies the why,
Right.
the purpose and meaning behind those processes.
Got it.
So she's a little bit more philosophical,
Yeah.
prompting us to think about,
Yeah.
the bigger picture.
Deeper questions. Yeah.
The deeper questions that science alone may not be able to answer.
Yeah. So it's understanding not just the facts, but the, so what behind the facts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Kingsley's very clear that we shouldn't confuse these two.
Right.
He uses this example of fire. Science can explain
Yeah.
how fire burns through chemical reactions and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't explain why it burns. What's the
Yeah.
ultimate purpose of fire? That's a question for Lady Y, and it leads us into this much
Yeah.
deeper exploration of the world.
So how does he bring these characters to life? Does he just, lecture about
No.
hows and whys?
Not at all. He takes us on these series of journeys, observing nature,
Yeah.
asking questions along the way.
Yeah.
One of the first scenes actually takes place in a glen, a small valley carved by water.
Mhm.
And he uses this kind of simple landscape to illustrate how even seemingly insignificant forces
Okay.
can have a dramatic impact over time.
Kind of like how, dripping water can eventually wear away stone.
Precisely.
Yeah.
He uses the image of a pond constantly,
Yeah.
filling with mud and sand
Right.
to show how, drop
Right.
by drop, grain by grain, water gradually shapes the land.
Yeah.
And it encourages us to think about the power of slow and persistent forces.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about how change often happens
Mm-hmm.
gradually, not in these, sudden bursts.
I'm starting to see why this book is so engaging. It takes everyday things we might not even think about and
Right.
reveals these amazing processes behind them. What other examples does he use to illustrate Madam How at work?
He certainly doesn't shy away from more, dramatic forces of nature.
Okay.
Talks about earthquakes and volcanoes,
Okay.
describing, the earth
Yeah.
shaking, erupting due to immense pressure building beneath the surface.
That sounds pretty intense. How does he,
Mhm.
how does he make these massive scary events relatable?
Well, he uses storytelling.
Okay.
He recounts the dramatic tale of Pliny the Elder,
Okay.
a Roman scholar who died during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to observe the eruption up close
Yeah.
and help people who were in danger.
Right.
But his curiosity ultimately led to his death.
Wow, that's a powerful story.
Yeah.
Really highlights the awesome power of nature, but also how even the smartest people
Right.
can be caught off guard by its,
Totally.
unpredictable forces.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how Kingsley connects these grand events
Yeah.
to kind of more everyday phenomena.
Okay.
For example, he compares the principles behind an earthquake
Oh.
to the collision of billiard balls.
Okay, so that's a good way to make something complex
Right.
more understandable. It's like the same laws of physics govern both, billiard balls colliding
Yeah.
and an earthquake.
It's all about encouraging us to observe the world around us carefully,
Right.
to see these connections between seemingly unrelated things.
I like that.
Because even the most ordinary things can hold clues
Yeah.
to understanding, the larger mysteries of the universe.
So we've gone from the subtle erosion of a glen
Yeah.
to the explosive power of volcanoes.
Right.
Where does Kingsley take us next?
Well, he shifts gears a little bit
It
and
is.
delves into the world of soil.
Okay.
He describes what he calls an endless chain of change in nature, a constant cycle of transformation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by...
An endless chain of change.
So he explains how fire turns into stone,
Okay.
stone into soil,
Yep.
soil into plant, plant into animal,
Heh.
animal back into soil,
Right.
and so on.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful illustration of how everything in nature is interconnected.
Yeah, it's like this
This
giant.
intricate web where,
Yeah.
every element's connected to every other element.
And even something as seemingly insignificant as a piece of rock
Right.
plays this vital role in this grand cycle.
It makes you think about the
Yes.
long-term impact of things we do. It's not just what happens in the moment, but like
Exactly.
how our actions ripple out.
That brings us to another fascinating
Yeah.
example of Madam How at work. The Power of Glaciers.
Okay.
Kingsley describes glaciers as these carving tools
Mm-hmm.
used by Madam How
Okay.
to shape the landscape.
So like giant ice bulldozers.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
He calls them the ice plow,
I like that.
and he explains how they form and move.
Okay.
He even uses icebergs as an example to
Wow.
illustrate, how vast and powerful
Yeah.
these frozen rivers can be.
The icebergs are already pretty impressive.
Right.
So I can only imagine the scale of a whole glacier. But how do we know that glaciers actually shape the land? Like they're
Uh-huh.
not around anymore.
Kingsley uses a specific example from England.
Mhm.
The Sarsden stones,
Okay.
found near Wellington College.
Okay.
These stones are made of a type of rock that's not typically found in that area,
Okay.
which strongly suggests that they were transported there by glaciers during the Ice Age.
So like giant souvenirs left behind by
That's
the
glaciers.
glaciers. It's amazing to think about the time scales involved. The Ice Age lasted for thousands of years.
It's a powerful reminder that the Earth is constantly changing, and these changes happen
Yeah.
over incredibly long periods of time.
I'm ready to keep traveling through time with Kingsley.
All right.
Where do we go next?
Hold on tight, because he's about to take us way back in time to a prehistoric Britain
Okay.
that's almost unrecognizable.
All right.
Yeah.
A prehistoric Britain. That sounds pretty intriguing. So I'm picturing dinosaurs roaming around, but I know
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not quite.
Yeah, no dinosaurs at this point.
Right.
But it was still very different than it is today. Kingsley paints this picture of a land inhabited by elephants, rhinoceroses,
Wow.
even hippopotamuses.
Hippos in Britain. That's kind of hard to imagine. It's
I
like
love-
something out of a fantasy novel, but you're saying this is based on
Oh, yeah.
actual scientific evidence?
Fossil discoveries have revealed that these animals did indeed roam Britain
Wow.
thousands of years ago. And it's just a reminder that the world we see today is just a snapshot in time.
Right.
The Earth has gone through these incredible transformations over millions of years.
And speaking of snapshots in time, Kingsley also mentions the discovery of flint tools
Yes.
in this section. So what do those tell us about
Well,
prehistoric Britain?
flint tools provide evidence for early human presence in Britain, dating back tens of thousands of years,
Okay.
and shows that, our ancestors were already shaping their environment,
Right.
using tools to hunt and create.
I'm really starting to get a sense of how this book blends scientific observation with a sense of wonder. It's not just
Right.
about presenting dry facts. It's about sparking the imagination
Absolutely.
and making you think about the deep history of our planet and our species.
And Kingsley takes that idea a step further, actually,
Okay.
by suggesting that these ancient people and their, strangeness
Right.
might have inspired some of the legends
Okay.
of fairies and trolls.
That's a fascinating connection. It makes you wonder how much of our mythology is rooted in
Right.
real world observations that have been
Totally.
distorted and embellished over time.
Yeah, maybe there's a grain of truth
Huh.
behind even the most fantastical stories.
So we've journeyed back to prehistoric Britain.
Yeah.
Encountered these ancient creatures and maybe even caught a glimpse of the origins of,
Yeah.
folklore and mythology. So
Right.
where does Kingsley take us next?
Well, from the distant past, he brings us back to the present day,
Okay.
observing something quite ordinary, actually. Chalk carts
Okay.
on a hillside.
Chalk carts. I'm picturing those carts filled with the white powdery chalk we used in school.
Right.
What's so interesting about
Well,
them?
Kingsley reveals that chalk is so much more than just a,
Okay.
writing material.
Right.
It actually plays a vital role in the ecosystem,
Okay.
acting as a kind of a sponge
Okay.
that holds water and enriches the soil.
So chalk isn't just for blackboards. It's
Right.
essential for life.
Exactly.
Wow.
It might seem mundane, but it's this key ingredient
Yeah.
in creating fertile land.
It's like he's saying, don't take anything for granted. Look closer and you'll
Yeah.
find something amazing.
Exactly. He then goes on to explain how this same chalk,
Yeah.
over vast stretches of time, can be eroded by water to form these
Yep.
intricate limestone caves.
Ooh, I love exploring caves. It's like, these hidden worlds
I know.
beneath the surface. So mysterious and beautiful.
Kingsley certainly captures that sense of wonder.
Right?
He describes these incredible formations.
Yeah.
These stalactites hanging from the ceiling like icy
Oh,
teeth,
right.
and the stalagmites rising from the floor.
It makes you want to grab a flashlight
I know.
and go exploring. So we've gone from the vastness of prehistoric landscapes to these hidden underground worlds. It's like he keeps shifting our
Yeah.
perspectives, showing us the world from the
Exactly.
circles.
And he does it again when he introduces two new characters,
Okay.
almost like personifications of different ways of thinking.
Okay.
Analysis and synthesis. They're Madam How's grandsons.
Analysis and synthesis. Those sound like concepts you'd learn about in a philosophy class,
Right.
not a children's book.
Right.
How does he explain these abstract ideas?
He makes them relatable by showing how they operate in the world around us.
Okay.
Analysis, as you might guess, is all about breaking things down
Right.
to understand their parts. Think of a scientist, carefully dissecting a flower to understand its structure.
Like taking something apart to figure out how it works. So
Exactly.
what about synthesis?
Synthesis is the opposite. It's about putting things together, combining different elements
Okay.
to create something new. It's the driving force behind creativity and innovation. Think of an artist combining colors and shapes
Yeah.
to paint a, stunning landscape.
So analysis is about understanding like how things are, and
Yeah.
synthesis is about how they could be.
That's a great way to summarize it.
Okay.
And Kingsley's point
Mm-hmm.
is that we need both of these approaches to fully understand and appreciate the world.
Right.
Analysis helps us grasp the details,
Right.
the individual components of things, while synthesis helps us see the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the interconnectedness
That makes sense.
of everything.
Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees. You
It
need
is.
you need both, the close-up view and the wide-angle lens.
He uses the example of a seashell.
Okay.
You could analyze its chemical composition, its physical structure,
Right.
all of its individual parts.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't capture the beauty and wonder of the shell as a whole,
Right.
as this creation of a living organism.
So analysis gives you the facts, the data,
Right.
but synthesis helps you see the story behind the facts, the creativity,
This
the
is-
ingenuity of nature.
It's like the difference between reading a list of ingredients
Right.
and tasting a delicious meal.
I'm starting to see how this seemingly simple children's book is actually full of these deep insights. It's not just teaching us scientific facts, it's teaching us how to think,
Right.
how to observe, how to
Yeah.
connect the dots.
And speaking of connecting the dots, Kingsley takes us to one of the most fascinating and interconnected ecosystems on Earth, the coral reef.
Coral reefs.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by those underwater cities, just teeming with life.
Yeah.
They seem so vibrant and alien. It's like
Oh.
something out of a science fiction movie.
They truly are a marvel of nature.
Yeah.
Kingsley explains how these intricate structures are built by these tiny creatures called coral polyps,
Okay.
each one contributing to a vast and complex colony.
It's amazing to think that something so small can create something so grand.
Right.
It's like, great things can be achieved through collective effort.
Absolutely. He uses the example of the Great Barrier Reef,
Okay.
which is so vast it can be seen from space.
Wow.
It's a testament to the power of cooperation
Right.
and the incredible diversity of life that can exist.
But I know coral reefs are also incredibly fragile ecosystems.
Right.
They're threatened by pollution,
Yeah.
climate change.
Totally.
Does Kingsley address the darker side of this story?
He doesn't shy away from it.
Okay.
To illustrate the importance of biodiversity, he contrasts the richness of life in a coral reef
Okay.
with the more limited diversity found in a cultivated field.
So while a field might be productive, in terms of growing crops, it lacks the sheer variety of life found in a,
Exactly.
untouched ecosystem like a coral reef.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He acknowledges that human intervention can shape the landscape to support, more human life, but it often comes at the expense of
Yeah.
other species.
It's like we're constantly trying to find that balance between
Right.
meeting our own needs and preserving
Yeah.
the natural world.
Totally.
It's not an easy task. Does Kingsley offer any guidance?
He doesn't offer simple solutions,
Right.
But he does encourage us to think critically about the consequences of our actions.
Yeah.
He reminds us that nature is not just a resource to be exploited, but a complex and interconnected web of life that we're a part of.
It's a humbling thought. We're not separate from nature. We're woven into it.
And our choices have the power to either strengthen or weaken those threads.
So we've gone from the vastness of prehistoric landscapes to the intricate details of seashells, from the bustling life of a coral reef to the challenges of balancing human needs with preservation. Where does this whirlwind tour take us next?
Kingsley's about to transport us to a place he calls the world's end.
Okay.
A desolate but stunningly beautiful landscape in Ireland.
The world's end. That sounds pretty dramatic. What makes this place so special?
It's a landscape shaped by the immense power of glaciers. Imagine like towering cliffs carved by ice, deep valleys echoing with the roar of the ocean.
Wow.
Wind-swept moors stretching as far as the eye can see.
It sounds both beautiful and a bit terrifying at the same time.
Right, like a place where you can really feel the raw power of nature.
But you said it was beautiful, too. What kind of beauty can exist in such a harsh environment?
It's a rugged beauty.
Okay.
A starkness that can be both humbling and inspiring at the same time.
Yeah.
Kingsley talks about the vibrant colors of wildflowers blooming against the gray backdrop of rock. The resilience of the plants that manage to thrive in this windswept landscape. And the ever-changing moods of the sea and the sky.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why he calls it the world's end. It's like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown.
Exactly. Yeah. And in this kind of wild, untamed landscape, Kingsley introduces another fascinating concept.
Right.
The idea of perpetual spring in Ireland.
Perpetual spring. So it's like springtime all year round. I thought Ireland was known for its rain.
Well, it does rain quite a bit in Ireland.
Yeah.
But the climate's also surprisingly mild.
Okay.
Kingsley explains how the Gulf Stream, that warm ocean current, moderates the temperatures, creating these conditions where plants can grow year-round.
So even in this seemingly harsh environment, life finds a way to flourish. It's a reminder that nature is full of surprises.
Yeah, full of these unexpected pockets of abundance.
Yeah,
and that abundance can take many forms. Kingsley points out that this perpetual spring allows for a unique richness of life.
Right.
But it also creates opportunities for darker forces to thrive.
Oh, okay.
And he shares this rather unsettling example of the poisonous Irish spurge, a plant used by poachers to kill salmon.
Wow, so even in this place of perpetual spring, there's this reminder of the delicate balance of nature. It's like every rose has its thorns.
Exactly. Nature is not always benign.
Yeah.
It can be both nurturing and destructive.
Right.
And it's that complexity that makes it so fascinating.
Well, our journey with Madam How and Lady Y has taken us from the gentle slopes of a glen to the fiery depths of volcanoes, from the vastness of prehistoric landscapes to the hidden wonders of caves, from the teeming life of a coral reef to the windswept beauty of the world's end. I feel like we've circumnavigated the globe and traveled through time. Where do we end up?
Kingsley brings us back home, taking us on a kind of a final journey through the changing geological formations of England.
Oh, yeah.
Like a road trip through time, with each layer of rock telling a story of Earth's history.
So it's like reading the pages of a giant book. Each layer of rock is a different chapter.
Exactly. And just like a good book, this journey reveals, unexpected twists and turns.
Yeah.
Kingsley tells a story of a well sinker who ignored the advice of a geologist and ended up wasting a lot of time and money trying to dig a well in an unsuitable location.
Ooh, that's a cautionary tale. Really highlights the importance of listening to experts.
Right.
Understanding the science behind the world around us.
Exactly. It's a reminder that scientific knowledge isn't just theoretical.
Right.
It has, practical applications that can save us time, money, and even potentially our lives.
So we've come full circle.
We have.
We started by exploring the wonder of nature, the why behind the how, and we've ended up, appreciating the practical value of understanding how the world works.
It's a beautiful balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kingsley reminds us that there's always more to learn, more to discover, more to question.
Well, I feel like our deep dive into Madam How and Lady Why has just, scratched the surface. It's given me a whole new way of looking at the world.
That's the beauty of Kingsley's work.
Yeah.
Like an invitation to explore, to never stop asking how and why.
Well, thank you for taking us on this incredible journey through the world of Madam How and Lady Why. I think we can all agree that Charles Kingsley was a master storyteller and a brilliant observer of nature.
Absolutely. He shows us that science doesn't have to be dry and boring. It can be full of adventure, mystery, even a touch of magic.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring the world around you, with that sense of curiosity and wonder. Pay attention to the small details and the grand landscapes. Ask questions, seek answers, and never stop learning.
And who knows? Maybe you'll uncover some of Madam How and Lady Why's secrets along the way.
That's all for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.